just like that, a lot of the trees are losing their leaves so quickly, huh? It was just a few days ago, literally, where it had all these awesome fall colors and stuff. Because with that in mind, what did I read today? It's kind of interesting reading this one where it seems like it's an article talking about how an area wanted to replace fireworks and they're looking for drone operators, but it doesn't specifically mention what type of, I guess, drone show per se. This one says, Luminosity searches for drone operators to replace OB fireworks. A long-term effort to find a viable alternative to 4th of July Ocean Beach fireworks is progressing as Luminosity, the organization leading the project, has teamed with a local non-profit and begun an international search to solicit drone operators to do a high-tech show. OB's Independence Day fireworks have fizzled because of the deteriorating condition of OB Pier, which experts say can no longer be trusted supporting heavy weights and has reached the end of its useful life. Consequently, well-known civic activist Mike James has led the formation of a working committee to explore options in creating the first Luminosity Festival to replace pyrotechnics. I know there are people who wouldn't be happy with that, and it says, additionally, James noted Luminosity's proposed drone show went out to bid about a week ago to a dozen or so companies providing the service all over the world. We can no longer use the pier and there is no place in OB anymore for fireworks, so the drone show is going to replace that. We've asked bidders to respond by mid-December so that by mid-January we'll know in which direction we will go. Again, they just say drone show per se, not drone light show. And it also says it could include a laser light presentations as well as an art installation. So it's kind of interesting how they're just trying to find anything high tech, I guess you could say, to demonstrate some kind of spectacular event or celebration. Although it makes me think, what else could you do that's not a drone light show, as that would be the most common, I guess, solution nowadays for some kind of celebration. Could you do anything else with hundreds of drones to, I guess, dazzle a crowd to ring in things like a new year, for example? And this was kind of interesting with that takeover of Twitter. Apparently there's an update of what their, I guess, policies are in terms of speech. And it says here, posted by Elon Musk, it says, new Twitter policy is freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Negative hate tweets will be max deboosted and demonetized, so no ads or other revenues to Twitter. You won't find the tweet unless you specifically seek it out, which is no different from the rest of the internet. It's kind of an interesting way of putting it. That's how a lot of people assume it is many times, but a lot of companies say no, that's not the case. Although for this, people will be wondering, well, what's the difference then? If you have someone on your team saying, oh, I think this is, quote, hate speech or something like that, they'll just censor people. According to this anyways, he's saying it'll be for specific posts only and not, say, an account. It says, no, this applies just to the individual tweet, not the whole account. So that's kind of interesting. Different reactions, of course. How would you react to that? Would you say he's doing it for the better in that case? Or do you think it's no different than every other site, as an example, where if you, I guess, don't agree with some people, they have the ability just to say, oh, I think it's this and that, and you're banned, so to speak. Although I think what would be interesting is if this system is put in place, in terms of transparency, what would actually help in that case, I think, is if it was specifically marked as, say, deboosted and all that, if that's what you want to say anyways. Would a company actually be willing to do that? Because overall, you need to find the balance between, let's just say, someone who's blatantly trying to threaten someone, harass them in that way. That's different than, let's just say, things like criticism. Or at the same time, there's difference between somebody talking about, I don't know, certain products and people spamming their products and so forth. That's a little different. So it'll be interesting to see if they can actually distinguish the difference, especially if this is supposed to be an automated system, I would imagine anyways, because having hundreds of thousands of people constantly monitoring content, I can't see that working. And I was reading this where it's still developing, but apparently today there's supposed to be a judgment against that Elizabeth Holmes lady who is part of that Theranos scandal in terms of that blood testing company. And apparently with what's coming out so far, the potential fine, a lot of people aren't happy about it. It's still developing though. Like here this person writes, Judge Davila concluded the total loss in share value that can be attributed to Holmes fraud is $121 million. He said he has concluded the guidelines for her sentencing is 135 to 168 months, 11 to 14 years. he asked the lawyers to weigh in. And she also adds a note here saying what? The government had asked for over $800 million in restitution and identified 29 victims. So you can imagine a lot of people are saying, what is this? You call this like, I guess, a punishment for what she did and all that? And it says they spent a bunch of time arguing over the dollar amount of investments in Theranos that should be considered in the sentence. Theranos raised $945 million. It was indicted on $193 million worth of funding. Government has asked for a sentence to include many more investments in consideration. Again, it's still a developing, I guess, detail, so maybe I'll post an update here to show what the final result was. But it makes you wonder, is that enough if that's the final fine? Because in many ways, to me personally, it sounds like it's very little, isn't it? And especially with recent stories like that FTX scandal, can people just say, oh, I'll commit a crime, scam people out of their money and so forth, at the end of the day, I'll just walk out with, I guess, more money, per se? That's probably not the case in that FTX case, but maybe in this one. Because I would think in many ways, some kind of punishment or a fine is supposed to discourage people from doing it, saying it's not worth it. But let's think of it from a criminal's point of view in this case, if it ends up being like this. If you knew that scamming, I don't know, millions of people out of their money is going to get you 15 years in prison, but by the end of that 15 years, when you serve your sentence, you'll still come out with $500 million. Would you do that? That's another way of thinking about it, I believe anyways. Alright, see you guys later.